Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be comparing the performance between the Valve Steam Deck and the all-new ASUS ROG Ally. I'm not here to tell you which one is better. That decision is always going to be up to you, and if you've got the Steam Deck right now, you've been enjoying it, keep playing it. I love the Steam Deck. I think both of them have their own weaknesses and their own strengths. This video is more of a performance comparison, and we'll also take a look at battery life, how much we're drawing from that internal battery, charge rates, and things like that. And we're going to be testing at 15 watts to kind of keep it fair here. Now, of course, the ASUS ROG Ally has a brand new Zen 4 APU known as the Ryzen Z1 Extreme, and throwing more wattage at it will outperform the Steam Deck across the board, CPU and GPU performance. But of course, throwing more wattage at it, we will get less battery life. And like I mentioned, I really wanted to kind of keep it fair because the Steam Deck can only run it up to 15 watts. And I'll tell you, battery life between the two at a 15 watt TDP, they're right on par with each other. First and foremost here, my own opinion about the operating systems. The ROG Ally is running Windows 11 out of the box, and of course the Steam Deck is running SteamOS 3. When it comes to ease of use and a nice user interface, the Steam Deck is definitely going to win. But we now have big picture mode on Windows, which is basically the same exact interface, so it's kind of a toss-up there. But my favorite thing about the Steam Deck when it initially launched was I was able to hand it off to my 4-year-old son without saying anything to him. I had downloaded a couple games that I know he would love to play. He scrolled right to him, started the game up, no problem at all. Did have to help him with a couple of the trigger buttons, showing him where everything was, but overall he was able to use it without any explanation. Now, ASUS has definitely done a great job with their Armoury Crate SE and their built-in game launcher, but using Windows on a handheld is still cumbersome when you compare it to SteamOS. But we do have the new big picture mode for Steam and Windows, so you can get that same look if you want to. Still, not exactly the same, given that the Steam Deck is running Linux, and most of the time you will have to go back to the desktop and bring up an on-screen keyboard and everything like that to really utilize Windows. But a great thing about both of these devices is they are x86 devices, so we can install Linux or Windows on both of them, and I will have a video coming up with SteamOS running on the ROG Ally. Now with that out of the way, it's time to move over to the performance section of this video, and of course we got to take a look at the specs real quick. Steam Deck has that custom AMD APU. It's based on Zen 2. We've got 4 cores, 8 threads, and an RDNA 2 iGPU with 8 CUs up to 1600 MHz. The Ally has a much newer APU. It's the Ryzen Zen 1 Extreme based on Zen 4, and we've got 8 cores and 16 threads with this one, and a 12 CU RDNA 3 iGPU up to 2700 MHz. Both of them utilize 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM, but it is faster on the ROG Ally, coming in at 6400 megatransfers per second versus 5500 on the Steam Deck, and this really does help out with iGPU performance. The Ally comes with a 512 gigabyte SSD. You can pick up the Steam Deck in a couple different variants, from the lowest end model with the 64 gigabyte eMMC module up to 512 gigabytes. It's using a 2230 SSD, and both of these are upgradable. Both have a 7-inch display, but on the Steam Deck it's an 800p IPS at 60 Hz. On the Ally, we've got a 120 Hz IPS at 1920 by 1080. 40 watt-hour battery for both of them, and the Steam Deck is coming in at 669 grams, while the Ally is 608 grams, so it is coming in a bit lighter. First up, we've got an oldie but a goodie, Dirt 3, and I did have to go through and find games that had built-in benchmarks that I own on Steam. 15 watt TDP, we're at 720p and 800p respectively, given the screen's aspect ratios, medium setting. Remember, the Steam Deck maxes out at 15 watts, and on the ROG Ally we can go a lot higher, and I'm not using any of the pre-made profiles from ASUS. I've got this set to a static 15 watts, so we don't have any kind of boost, and you can see it from Afterburner. We're right there, steady at 15 watts on that APU. We've also got total system power draw listed with both of these devices, and by the way, they are at 100% brightness. The Ally is pulling around 24 watts from the battery, and the Steam Deck is pulling a bit less, but they're right there with each other with that TDP set at 15 watts, so battery life is going to be a bit better on the Steam Deck, and we'll look at that in a little bit. But at the end of this run, on the Ally, we had an average of 152 FPS and a minimum of 105. On the Steam Deck, an average of 128, minimum of 96. Of course, this is an older game, and on both of these devices, just locking it right down at 60, you'll have a great time with it. So let's take it up to something a bit newer. And that's going to be Forza Horizon 5. 15 watt, 720, 800p respectively, low settings with no FSR on either of these devices. Usually when I play this on the Steam Deck, I lock it at 60 and set FSR to balanced, which gives me some really good performance, but I wanted to leave it off here. And on the Ally, we had an average of 79 FPS, on the Steam Deck, 58. This game is very well optimized and runs great on APU, but we've got a 30% uptick here in FPS with Forza Horizon 5 at 15 watts on the ROG Ally. Checking out Horizon Zero Dawn, 15 watts, FSR is set to performance and we're at low settings. I got some pretty impressive performance out of both of these devices. The Steam Deck managed an average of 65 FPS, while the Ally came in at 83 on average. And the final one we have here is Cyberpunk 2077, 15 watts, FSR set to performance, low. I mean, we're as low as we can go with this just to see what we can get out of it. And it's really not that bad on both. But when we take a look at the results, you'll see that the Steam Deck still has that power management covered because it does know where to send that wattage, either it be the CPU or the GPU. And with what Valve and AMD have done here with this lower watt APU, it's absolutely amazing. Steam Deck is still a really, really great device. But with this game on the Ally, we got an average of 69 FPS, a minimum of 13. And if you take a look at the Steam Deck, we got an average of 67 and a minimum of 29. And that's what I mean by power management. It just knows where to send that wattage. So this is about the max we're going to get out of Cyberpunk 2077 on the Steam Deck. But we've got a lot more that we can get out of the Ally because what we've seen so far has only been running at 15 watts. I wanted to kind of keep it fair here. But just taking the Ally up to 20 watts, and remember, we can go up to 30 on battery, 35 while plugged into the wall. And with it set up like this, 20 watts, 720p, low settings, FSR set to performance, we now get an average of 84 FPS with the built-in Cyberpunk 2077 benchmark. And we can get more because, like I mentioned, we can go up to 30 watts on battery. But of course, at those higher TDPs on the Ally, our battery life will suffer. But luckily, this does come packed with a 65 watt PD quick charger. And I've run some tests here. 0 to 100% on the Ally, 1.4 hours. Steam Deck comes with a 45 watt charger, and we're talking about the stock chargers here. 3.3 hours to charge the Steam Deck from 0 to 100%. So obviously, topping that battery off on the Ally will be much quicker. And when it comes to overall battery life, from my testing so far, and I've gone through this twice just to be sure, 15 watt TDP on both of these devices. On the Steam Deck, we get 103 minutes. On the Ally, 96 minutes. So they're not that far off from each other, but if you're the kind of person who doesn't play AAA games at 15 watts, takes it on down on the Steam Deck, you can get much better battery life and performance out of the Steam Deck due to its power management system that Valve and AMD have come up with. When I'm playing AAA games on the Steam Deck, I want to get the best performance, so I'm usually always maxed out at 15 watts. Another thing you got to keep in mind is the Steam Deck has been on the market for a year. Valve has had a lot of time to update drivers, optimize voltages, and everything like that, and I'm sure we'll see some pretty good improvements with battery life on the ROG Ally as it goes on, but I'm actually making this before it's officially available to the public. It launches June 13th, and you can pre-order it right now if you're interested. But I gotta say, if you've already got a Steam Deck, you've been using it for a little while, you're happy with the performance, you've gotten used to how it feels, you love the built-in trackpads, keep the Steam Deck. Keep using it. Valve is still going to optimize drivers down the road for the Steam Deck. And of course, if they ever release a number 2, it's probably going to be more powerful than the ROG Ally. But if I was in the market right now for a handheld and it was a toss-up between the Ally and the Steam Deck, I would go with the Ally, just because I know it's got newer architecture on the CPU and GPU. Plus, we've got an absolutely beautiful 120 Hz display. And when it comes to emulation, it's second to none right now. That Z1 Extreme handles emulation like a boss. If you've got a Steam Deck, you're happy with it, keep it. If you're in the market, I would go ahead and look into getting something a little newer like the ROG Ally. If you're interested in picking up either one of these, I will leave some links in the description. And if you've got any questions, let me know down below. But that's it for this one. And like always, thanks for watching.